South Africa is obsessed with the Oscar Pistorius story, but it's really interesting to see how brands that have very happily associated themselves with his success are now distancing themselves from his excess. Perhaps that's a nice way of putting it. Michael Goldman is Senior Lecturer in Marketing at Gibbs. Give us an example of this, because here is Oscar Pistorius, the hero of the Paralympics, hero of the able-bodied Olympics. Everybody was throwing money at him, and suddenly there's this withdrawal of support for a man who's not been found guilty of a crime.
Absolutely, and we've seen this, haven't we, over the last few years, certainly with Tiger Woods, certainly with Lance Armstrong, different kinds of scandals, and perhaps you have to go back to 1994 and O.J. Simpson to understand the gravity of the situation.
Is O.J. Simpson the first sort of really big celebrity scandal associated with a brand?
It is the biggest one, and perhaps, you know, Oscar will be the second and most comparable to O.J. Simpson. Here was a situation where someone was loved as an athlete and had also kind of moved beyond just being an athlete, was seen after his career as someone that you could really trust. Here was O.J. Simpson, who everyone loved. He'd kind of moved beyond being an African-American athlete. He was just a great American athlete. And for brands like Hertz that associated themselves with him, he was invaluable. It was a perfect commercial marriage between Hertz and O.J. Simpson until some of the information about his personal life started coming out, and then until the 1994 arrest.
And Hertz, how did Hertz handle it? Because 1994, he is accused of killing his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and he went through a lengthy, very public trial, televised trial. We all remember it. Hertz don't immediately cut ties with him. And this is a seminal case, isn't it?
It is. And if you look at Hertz's relationship with O.J. Simpson, one of the key things about that case is because of O.J.'s strong appeal to consumers and to the general American public, Hertz never did a background check. They trusted that O.J. was as clean as he looked because his image was so appealing. 1987 happened, where there was a domestic violence incident that hit the newspapers. Hertz phoned up O.J. Simpson, had a conversation. CEO phoned up O.J. Simpson and had a conversation about this, was comfortable that nothing serious was happening, and then carried on. And so there was an opportunity there that Hertz maybe could have looked at it more closely. They decided not to. And then 1994 happens, and no comment from Hertz firstly. Then a junior manager puts out a comment on an unbranded piece of paper suggesting that they're going to stop using O.J. Simpson in their communications. And finally, pretty much 2 to 3 weeks later, then the final announcement comes that they've severed the relationship, perhaps too late.
However, O.J. Simpson is found not guilty of murdering Nicole Brown Simpson. The world believes he's guilty, but he's not guilty. And Hertz has then terminated that relationship. Not fair, surely.
Yeah, you could argue perhaps it's not fair. The key issue, though, for Hertz is what do their consumers think? And this is a co-branded relationship. It's about putting two brands together for a certain commercial objective. And for Hertz, it was about raising awareness and building a loyalty with their customer group. And when O.J. Simpson's brand associations change, when consumers in their mind start having negative associations with O.J. Simpson, whether they are real or not, perception is reality. When that starts happening, Hertz has to step back and say, this doesn't work for our brand anymore. We can maybe try and support O.J. Simpson privately. We can keep that relationship going privately. But from a commercial point of view, the brands have to disconnect.
Okay, Tiger Woods, let's take a different example. Doesn't kill anybody, but he sows his wild oats as widely as he possibly can over a number of years. His wife finds out. There are spectacular stories about golf clubs into windscreens. Tiger Woods then disappears from the public eye for 2 or 3 years, and brands have got to make a very careful choice as to whether or not to continue supporting Tiger Woods. Nike, which is a suspended backer of Oscar Pistorius, is involved there.
Absolutely, and what Nike would have argued with Tiger Woods, as they did publicly, is that he never cheated at golf. Now, that may cause a lot of people some heartache, and that make them really upset about that. But at the end of the day, Nike believed that because Tiger never cheated at the game of golf, he continued to play golf really well when he was playing. And although his career has taken slumps, you know, and he's not in the tournament right now either, he's still a major golfer. And what Nike was able to do with the Tiger brand is build a brand of golf. And that brand's done exceptionally well. If you look at that business, you now have billions and billions of dollars being sold of Nike golf equipment that wouldn't have existed before.
But it's our brand is associated with the sport. Our brand ambassador has ethics that you question, but don't question our brand's ethics. That's a dangerous game to play.
It is a dangerous game to play, and I think the lesson for brands is to do constant monitoring and evaluation. We saw it with Hertz back in the late 80s and early 90s. We certainly see it with Nike all the time, as they're constantly measuring how people are evaluating their brand ambassadors. And so with the Tiger Woods situation, although Nike lost brand value and they lost financial value, an analysis of the 10 days after the Tiger Woods story broke showed that $12 billion of value was taken out of the share value of those companies that continue to support Tiger Woods. But what Nike was able to do is constantly measure how their core golf audience was perceiving Tiger, and that wasn't negative.
That's a very high-risk strategy. We turn to Oscar Pistorius then, the man who's fallen from grace in a period of hours, and brands stuck by him for a few days, and gradually we've seen them erode.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who's admitted to pulling a trigger 4 times and killing another human being, whether he did it intentionally or because he thought he was dealing with a burglar in his home. The outcome is the same. Somebody is dead.
Yes.
Your brand cannot support somebody who willfully killed another human being.
Exactly, and it's a very serious situation, I think, for all of those brands. I was a bit surprised at how long it took many of those global brands that have a vast experience in this kind of endorsement business, how long it took them to make a proper statement and how long it took them to take some management action. Typically, the research suggests you have 5 or 6 days, and for many of them, they passed that deadline and went on and started getting a lot of questions from the media and others and consumers, really questioning why they weren't taking more specific action. Because a situation as serious as what happened on Valentine's morning, brands have to take action very, very quickly.
But is it that we don't want to believe our heroes are fallible that holds us back from making sensible commercial decisions?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I think we saw it with O.J. Simpson and Hertz, where there was a very personal relationship between the CEO and the athlete, and that clouded some of the judgment. And perhaps now, given what Oscar represented, and for many around the world, Oscar was the biggest story coming out of South Africa even before Wednesday morning, and so perhaps he had access to platforms that many other athletes in South Africa never have had access to. And so here was a global icon that how can you afford not to associate with him? And so really tough, I think, management conversation late last week and early this week, as brands had to really decide what were their consumers saying, what were their employees saying, what are their shareholders saying, what's the next step of action here.
Michael Goldman, thanks very much. He's a senior lecturer in marketing at Gibbs on the tough decisions that companies have to take when our heroes fail us, or maybe it's the brands that built up the hero status in the first place.